I'm the faculty director of the Supreme Court Litigation Clinic here at UVA, and I brought with me one of our students, Stephen. And Stephen's a third-year student. Stephen, do you want to talk about maybe where you're from and what you're doing after graduation?
Yeah, of course. So I'm from New Jersey. I went to college there. After graduation, I wanted to return back home, so I'm going to be working in New York at a firm, Quinn Emanuel, to stay close to home.
Yeah, and then you are going to be a law clerk for a little bit, right?
Yeah, after 2 years, I'm going to clerk on the District of New Jersey.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I don't think we have a ton of time, and I want to keep this pretty relaxed and chill. So what I'll try to do is I'll talk for about 5 or 10 minutes. I have a couple slides, and then I'll just open it up for questions for me and Stephen. Is that okay? Sound good? All right, great. Well, so I'm sure you've gone to some other law schools, or you're thinking about going and checking out some other law schools, and maybe those schools have Supreme Court clinics. And before I get started, I think I will just ask the audience, what do you know, what do you think a Supreme Court clinic does at a law school? Anyone? You there, you start in the back. What's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew.
A lot of writing and briefing, probably.
Okay, but on what? On what's?
On a certain cert petition or case that might come before the court.
Okay, great. Okay, in order to encourage greater participation among this group, Andrew is getting a piece of clinic swag, which is our notepad that says Supreme Court Litigation Clinic. Stephen had to work hundreds of hours for that. so maybe standards have changed, but I hope, and we have a bunch of our briefs here, and we have another notepad, and I would want to encourage some participation. But Andrew's totally right. At the Supreme Court Clinic, we sort of operate as a law firm, and what we do is we take cases that we think might go up to the Supreme Court, and we write what's known as a cert petition, which is something that asks the Supreme Court to look at the case. And cert petitions are filed all the time. I think last year about 10,000 were filed, and the Supreme Court decided to grant 55 or 60 cases of those 10,000, right? We filed 5, and the Supreme Court granted 3 of our cases, okay? And so I wanted to sort of provide a little background about sort of what our clinic does and sort of what the type of work we do. So if you think about it, right now there have been about 50, I said that the Supreme Court granted about 55 to 60 cases. They've heard about 40 of them so far, 40 or so, and this is the breakdown of the cases that are being handled before the Supreme Court right now, those 40 to 50 cases, and who's handling those cases, right? And this adds up to more than 40 to 50 because there are 2 sides of every case. So, but as you can see, you can all see the orange slice, guys. That orange slice is what law school clinics, that's all the law school clinics out there. They've handled 5 cases before the Supreme Court, right? And let's remember, I want you guys all to focus also both on the orange slice and the big blue slice. The big blue slice is private law firms. Those are law firms that maybe you'll go and work at someday as a summer associate or full-time. And they represent a huge part of the pie. And law school clinics are a sizable amount of the pie, but they are less than law firms, less than state and local governments and federal governments, but they're still a pretty big part of the pie overall, right? But I think what you're asking and what I'm supposed to do here at UVA is, especially Admitted Students Weekend, is I'm being paid to sell UVA, right? So let's take a look at this orange slice of the pie, right? So there are a bunch of other law schools that I'm sure you're considering, and a bunch of other law schools who have Supreme Court clinics. So how does that break down of the cases that have been argued before the Supreme Court this year by law school clinics? That's what it's like, right? And these are other law schools, and I know that this is sort of hard to read, so I actually consolidated this into an even bigger graphic. Right? And so I think this is important because it shows that the Supreme Court takes us seriously when we write briefs, when we take cases, when we make arguments for clients on these important matters. They listen to us. They take they read the briefs and they grant the cases so we can make those arguments on these important legal matters. And I want to shift a little bit to remember the big part of the pie, the big law firm slice of the pie, that sort of big blue chunk. Remember that in the pie chart? Okay, so once you start working at a law firm, or you come to law school, you'll start thinking about law firms, you'll spend probably way too much time on this site called Vault, which ranks law firms. And it ranks law firms in terms of specialty areas. And Supreme Court litigation is one subset of what's known as appellate litigation. And Vault ranks the appellate litigation shops. And shops like Williams & Connolly and Gibson Dunn, I think Stephen will tell you, like, these are places that law students really want to go to if they want to do Supreme Court work as a career, as just a career. And when I said earlier, when I started this presentation, I said, look, I don't really think of ourselves as a law school clinic, just as a law school clinic. I think of ourselves as a private law firm, a really well-rounded and well-respected law firm. And I think the numbers bear this out. Remember, like I said, they're ranked in terms of what people see these law firms are in their appellate litigation, in terms of how strong their appellate litigation practices are. And that's us. So we're sitting right between the first, second, and third place in terms of how robust their appellate litigation practices are. And I think that just goes to show that some people work and try really hard at law school, and they want to work at these law firms down the line. But you have the opportunity, if you come here, to just work in one of these places here. Now, I'm going to just say this right now, I cannot pay you the amount that Williams & Connolly or Gibson Dunn are doing. I actually don't even get paid that much myself, luckily. But I can give you the experience, right? And I can give you the chance to work on those cases, or at least I can try. And it's a learning experience for all of us. It's not just a learning experience for our students and our institution. Honestly and candidly, it's a learning experience for me. Right? Like, these are all super famous and super well compensated appellate litigators. And then there's me. And I think my students, as a way to troll me, did a study and made it clear that I am, in fact, the lowest paid Supreme Court litigator by a lot. And so I'm not just giving up the money and the boat just for fun. I'm doing it because I really love this job. I really love working with students. This is where I went to college. I went to college at UVA. I really love this institution, and I want to work with the students like Stephen and hopefully some of you. To me, it's so fascinating to see you all who start in the clinic as sort of just finished your second year of law school, starting to think about what your career is, and you end up being these formidable lawyers. And I don't have to say that. I really don't have to say that. And honestly, a lot of the times, I instead of saying it, I let other people do the talking for us. And to give you an example of this, after my last argument, a professor at another law school reached out to me, another law school that you might be considering, and it was I was asleep when he sent this, but then I read it afterwards. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning after my last argument. This was my argument last month, and just sent this unprompted to me. And this goes to show sort of the respect that I think that UVA's Law Clinic has, the work that we do, the quality of representation we provide to our clients, and sort of the cutting edge nature of the engagements that we take on. I think it's a really incredible opportunity. I hope my students do as well. And I hope that some of you who decide to come to UVA will get that same chance with me in the future.